This is Martin Speake interviewing Duncan Lamont on the 17th of October 2015. Hi, Duncan.
Hello.
Just first of all, just start at the beginning. So, when and where were you born?
I was born in Greenock, Scotland, and 20 miles from Glasgow. Horrible place, great place to come from. And I hope you can get this because my voice is a bit husky.
Should be okay.
But I mean, Greenock is a pretty awful place, and I was doomed for the shipyards. I left school at 14, and I had a really had a funny childhood because I did a program called is it called Inheritance? It's like the poor man's Desert Island Discs, and it was a program of the things that inspired you when you're a child. You know, like songs and things like that you remembered throughout your life. You know, the first tunes you actually learned, and my family were really very unusual because they had parties every night, but they didn't call them parties, it was parties because people came in and they drank and ate food and things like that until about 5 and 6 in the morning. So I never went to school. I never went to school at all, hardly. And
Well, because you're up all night?
I was up all night.
So you slept in the day?
Yeah. Yeah, nobody get into a house before two in the afternoon. Nobody.
Nobody?
Nobody get into our house. The house was officially closed till people got up out of bed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So it's real nightlife already?
Yeah, it was a nightlife.
What,
But
Duncan,
we didn't even think it was a
you.
nightlife.
What year were you born?
1931. And we never considered it unusual. And my family was so relaxed that I used to smoke. I mean, I horrified the people in the program. I said, I was smoking and drinking when I was 5. And what it was, we used to go to Ireland every year for holidays, for maybe 6 weeks or whatever. And I mean, the wonderful thing is, we used to go down to the Derry boat. We went over to the London Derry, and it seems incredible now, but we didn't have the fare to have breakfast the next day, and we're going away for maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months if we felt like it. But we didn't have enough money for breakfast when we got off the boat. So we used to go down to the quayside, and my mother used to say, Duncan, I was just a little thing, run on with those people. There's loads of people, run on with them, so she didn't have to pay my fare. That's how broke we were. But we're going for 3 months holiday.
What
and
did
my
your
father
parents do?
Pardon?
What did your parents do for work?
My father worked in the torpedo factory, but he was a musician. He was an accordion player, and a very good accordion. He was playing when he was 5. He did little recitals because I remember seeing a program, Master Duncan Lamont, 5 years old, playing the button keyed melodeon, and he played the button keyed melodeon beautifully. And the thing I remember about my dad was his fingers hardly moved when he played. His fingers, and I've tried to do it since, and I find it difficult, but he never lost touch with the keys. He had no ear at all. I tried to teach him once chords on the accordion, because eventually he went to a piano accordion. But that's the thing I always remember, his hands never moved, his fingers never moved. They were just imperceptible, the way they just moved from semi-moved, and he said something quite interesting once. He said, Duncan, technique's just a trick, which I'm thinking back and I think, well, maybe he's right actually, because you can learn tricks. Like, for instance, if you spent if you spent 2 or 3 years in a band that played everything up tempo, you would eventually become a very good up tempo player.
Mm.
You know, it goes with that saying. So, anyway, we lived in a single apartment in Greenock. That was all we had. A single. We stayed. There's my father, 2 sisters, another cousin we adopted eventually, and another baby that was being given away, and my sister said, "Oh, we'll have it like a puppy or something."
A baby being given away.
Yeah, this girl was pregnant. She said, "I'm having a baby," and Tricia, my sister, said, "Well, what are you going to do?" She said, "I'm going to put it into an orphanage. I'm getting rid of it. You know, just I don't want to know about the baby, because there were wild people up there." And Tricia said, "Oh, we'll have the baby. We'll have it." And when the baby was a week old, we met the girl coming out of the hospital, I presume, maybe not the hospital, but we met the girl, and we had the baby. As I said in the interview, I said, my family were Bohemians, and they didn't even know what the word meant. They were so relaxed, so cool about things, and the house was jam-packed every night with American sailors, free French, airmen and soldiers, and loads of musicians there as well. It was a wonderful house. Incredible.
Scottish musicians.
Pardon?
Scottish musicians.
Oh yeah.
Local people.
Local guys, yeah, used to come up to us until sometimes people used to go and bring back rolls at 5 and 6 in the morning, and we'd have breakfast then, and then we'd go to bed. But I mean, I was telling you about my family. I used to go on the boat without paying. They used to get on the boat, and my father used to. Once it was a very rough trip, the Derry crossing. We were in the steerage, you know, and all the poor cows were being sick and mooing and things like that. And my father played the accordion. And after a couple of hours or whatever, somebody went round with a hat, or the bonnet, they called it, bonnet, you know, the bonnet. Go round with the bonnet for Duncan. And so we had enough money for breakfast and a bus fare to this place that we rented. We rented a house yearly, and the rent was 30 shillings a year. And we were being robbed because it didn't have any sanitation or running water. You just had to make your own arrangements in the bar and things like that. So it was, and as soon as we arrived in Quigley's Point, it was whoopee parties again, and all the local people came, and they were up, and one farmer said, "Mrs. Lamont, I believe you're leaving." It was at the end of the holiday, and my mother said, "Yeah," and he said, "Thank God, yes, I'll get some work out of my workmen again." So it was a bizarre thing. And the thing was, I used to, when I was five, I used to go over and help the local blacksmith who was opposite. And the tradition there was, every time they shod a horse, the blacksmith was taken over for a drink. So I used to potter around in there doing nothing, but he just let me do whatever I wanted to. But when the horse was shod, I used to go up to the pub with the guys, and they used to give me a small glass of Guinness. So I had maybe 3 or 4 of those, and maybe more a day, depending how many horses
the guys age were you?
Pardon?
What age were you?
5.
You were drinking Guinness at 5?
Yeah, and the other thing was, they're always, I mean, everybody smoked in those days, you know, and there were always cigarette ashtrays around, and so I used to be drinking my Guinness, and I used to be talking to somebody. I'd pick up a cigarette and I'd smoke it, and eventually I smoked cigarettes, and my family never stopped me. It never occurred to them to he's only a little boy. What is he doing, smoking and drinking? And then I would try a pipe. If somebody had a pipe, I'd never got the pipe. Or a cigar, you know. And the only thing I couldn't manage was chewing tobacco. I found chewing tobacco made me sick. So I mean, but apart from that, I was drinking and smoking, and they were horrified on this program I did. They said, "You're joking." I said, "No, it's true."
But
And
you tolerated it.
yeah,
You-
yeah, and my family never stopped me.
And
Never.
they drank and smoked as well, the family.
No, my father didn't drink at all. He didn't drink.
We didn't drink.
No, and my mother didn't drink. No, they didn't drink, and my sisters didn't drink. So it was
That was unusual.
teetotal family. Yeah, but I was the only one. I was the only drunkard in the family. But I mean, that's giving you a glimmer of my background.
Quite unusual.
It was. I mean, I was off school for a year once, and nobody even knew. Nobody knew, and it was only by accident I was found out I had to go to school. So I used to. I was in Troon. I was because we went through the Blitz, which was horrific. It killed, I think, 5,000 people that night, and I believe the machine gunned the people.
In your town?
Yeah, in Greenock, which was a shipbuilding area.
So they were aiming for the ship.
And my father lost three sisters and their families in one night. I mean, it was horrific. It was. Well, I just can't describe what it was like the following
You
day.
remember that?
Oh, I remember it very well. Yeah, I remember seeing the paint factory go up in flames, which was in a strange way very beautiful. It was wonderful, a wonderful sight. But I mean, they were raining bombs down as well. So it was, paradoxically, it was beautiful to see, but it was horrific. I had a horrific time. And anyway,
Was your house touched?
yeah,
That was hit, was it?
the whole street was demolished, except our house. And we went back up in the morning to make a cup of tea, and there was no water, there was nothing, no sanitation or whatever, nothing. And firemen came in and said, "Get out of this place fast. It could fall down." It was quite a horrific time. Anyway, it was a very musical family because my sister was an accordion player. And my other sister was a dancer, a Scottish dancer, who was really the Charlie Parker of the Scottish dancers. She was just fantastic, just great. I mean, she won the Premier Award at the Cowell Games. I mean, when she used to get into contests, people would say, "Is Mary?" They say Lamont in Scotland. They don't say Lamont. So when I'm here, I say Lamont, but if I'm in Scotland, I say Lamont, Duncan Lamont.
Lamont.
Yeah. So anyway. When Mary used to get into a contest, people would say, "Is Mary Lamont in for it?" Forget it. Don't even go in. She'll wipe the board, and she always did. And the funny thing was that Mary was racked with bronchitis, and she'd be gasping for breath until she went on the stand. And when she went on the stand, she danced like an angel and came off and was. I mean, it's...
So she just forgot about it when she was in the moment.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It's powerful, isn't it?
It's very, very powerful, yeah. So anyway, Mary, my sister, had a dance class when she was, she had 80 pupils when she was 13. I mean, just a
80
child.
pupils.
80 pupils. And she taught them everything, you know.
What kind of dance?
Well, there was Scottish dancing, tap dancing, every type of dancing, contortionist, you know. There was a girl who did contortions and things like that. And Mary taught every type. There was a dance called the Fred Astaire, I always remember that, you know, Fred Astaire.
Yeah.
And she taught every type of dancing. And she was just an incredible dancer. So, I mean, there must have been a glimmer of something there. And anyway, the thing I remember about music was my sisters took me to see when I was 3, I think. They took me to see a musical, a movie. It was called The Merry Widow. You know, France La Ha, you know, Girls Were Made for Love and Kissing, tunes like that. And one of the tunes was called The Merry Widow Waltz. Do you know the Merry Widow Waltz?
No.
Anyway, well, when I went home that night, I mean, imagine taking a child of 3 to see a black and white musical. It was ridiculous. But I mean, it was a ridiculous family. They just they just did whatever they wanted to do. No holds barred. And I came into the house and I sang this song note for note. And everybody went, Duncan, that's wonderful. And I thought, I really like show business. I think I'll be in show business. So, I mean, that was my first introduction to music. And then when I was 7, I pestered my mother for years. I used to have a Tipperary flute. I used to play that when I was a child, you know, and which was like a tin whistle thing, you know. And which years later I played. I did a lot of library music, and I played this tin whistle very, very fast, very, very. I mean, people thought the thing was double tempo, doubled up, you know, but the people wouldn't believe how fast it was, you know, because. I mean, it's so easy to play. Have you played the tin whistle?
Not really, no.
It's very, very easy, you know, because your fingers just bounce off the keys, the holes, you know. Anyway, when I was 7, I got a trumpet, simply because that was all we could afford. Because it was, the trumpet cost me 30 shillings, 30 pieces of silver.
Had you heard any trumpet players that you liked already?
No, it's just that I wanted to do something in music, because it seemed to be my whole family's life was in music. It seemed that was the important thing in life, just music.
So there'd be music at the parties.
Oh yeah,
Your
there'd be
dad
people
would be
playing accordions and things like that, and singing, and maybe a trumpet player there.
Did your mother sing?
She used to sing a bit, yeah, but no. But the nice thing about my mum was, she used to say, I can't sing. But we used to force her into singing. And the tune she used to sing was You'll Never Know. Do you know the tune You'll Never Know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Harry Warren tune.
I've heard it.
Lovely. And I thought it was such a cool thing for an old lady to do. Now I'm 2 years older than she was. But I mean, I started playing the trumpet, and we were evacuated by this time, because Greenock was just wiped out.
Where did you go?
We went to Troon.
Where's that?
It's a golfing area. It's about 30 miles away from Greenock.
Okay.
And it was a terrible experience, because they hated evacuees. They hated, you know, it was the only place I went to where I was actually hated. These bloody evacuees coming down here, ruining our lovely countryside and things like that. It was like that, and it was tough. But I mean,
were you living with another family, or did you all go together?
Well, my father stayed and worked in the torpedo factory, and my mother and sisters. Well, one of my sisters, because Mary got married, but my other sister went down, and we went down to Troon, and there was a guy who played the trumpet called Ray Gowdy. I always remember the guy's name, and he worked in the shipyards down there, and this guy he must have been an alcoholic, because I remember. His wife used to say, I used to go in for a lesson in his house. His mother used to say, the wee boy's here for a lesson. and he used to say, "Piss off." He was sleeping, he was drunk, you know, but he finally got up and looked through and say, "Oh yeah, okay, well, yeah, well you do this," and everything was up. You know, there's piano copies that you got in those days with florid pictures, you know, of it might be Nelson Eddy and Jeanette MacDonald or something singing Sweethearts. You'd buy a piano copy because everybody bought. Nobody that I knew bought records because we couldn't afford anything like a gramophone. So it was sheet music. So I learned all these tunes, these tunes, sheet music, you know.
So you were reading music then? You could read music? Or?
Well, I thought I could read music until I was with this guy for probably a couple of years, and he couldn't play at all actually, but I didn't know the difference. But I went back to back to Greenock again, and I went up to Glasgow for lessons. And this guy I went to was a virtuoso. His name was Jimmy Young. He was a wonderful, wonderful. He'd been a cornet player, and he could play things like The Flight of the Bumblebee, double tonguing, and he was an amazing player. And he said to me, "All right, son, well, can you read music?" I said, "Yeah." So he took me and he put up a sheet of just ordinary music, you know. And I thought, well, it doesn't have a picture on the front. What is this? And I started, and he said, "Look, son, you can't read music, but don't worry, I'll teach you." And so he taught me then. And I became the star pupil, because I used to play these incredibly difficult things like the Carnival of Venice variations, you know. And I was really, I was so stupid. I wasn't even nervous when people used to come up from London, maybe four trumpets with the Cyril Stapleton's band, or Ted Heath's band, or somebody would come up, and Jimmy used to say, because they all respected him very highly, he said, "Sit over there." He said, "Duncan, play Facilita." And I go, and I used to play on this thing, and I could see these guys going. But I was 13 at the time. I was so dumb. I wasn't even nervous.
Were you practicing a lot then?
Oh yeah.
You did do a lot of hours.
I did. I somehow, on the trumpet, it's an easier instrument to practice than the saxophone. Saxophone, you're bound by a reed. You're blowing a reed. But the trumpet is very pure. You play the trumpet and or a brass instrument anyway, you know, and you can play flexibility exercises. You can play long notes. You can do, but on the saxophone, it's just boring. It's just that's my excuse anyway. I'm sticking with it.
That's interesting. So you're saying that the technical exercises on the trumpet were more interesting to you?
Yeah,
you
I mean,
didn't mind doing that, long notes.
Well, there were things like slurring octaves and things like that, which helped your embouchure, and technique-wise, I mean, the trumpet is the easiest instrument in the world, unless you have trouble up in your embouchure, and then it's impossible. It really is. It's impossible. If you haven't got the right equipment up here, you can't.
Do you mean natural embouchure, or do you mean
well, I
the
mean,
one you're taught?
Well, ideally, an ideal embouchure, but I mean, I know people have managed to surmount that, but I mean, in general, the trumpet is very easy if you've got the right equipment up in your mouth. And so, anyway, I started doing gigs when I was 13, and it shows you how old I am. I used to do gigs. They were called coming home parties. They were for prisoners of war coming back, and they always had a party for a prisoner of war coming back, maybe somebody's son or brother or something like that. And they used to have an accordion player, and maybe a button keyed melodeon player, you know, and me, trumpet.
What kind of music would you play?
we played everything. We played like jigs and reels and the current tunes of the day, and we did a gig. You know, we played a selection of things, and I was so stupid. I didn't realise my lip get tired. And then I used to think to myself, it's strange that I've been playing for 3 hours, but my lip isn't as good as it was. Why is that? So eventually I tried, somebody said, try another embouchure. So I tried, I moved the mouthpiece up onto the red of my lip, which I didn't realise, but that is the suicide. Because there's just, I think, just nerves up there. There's no muscle. There's no support. And I practiced for 2 weeks. And then I went out to do a gig. And I found I could play top G's and things like that, and A's without any problem. You know, just fly up to them. But I started this gig, and after about half an hour, my lip just gave up. And I never got it back again. I never, ever. And I went to see the teacher, because he said to me eventually, he said, Duncan, there's nothing else I can show you, but don't get involved in jazz. Whatever you do, you'll be a classical trumpet player. And so I started doing all these gigs, and I said, Jimmy, I'm having trouble. He said, well, let me hear you play. And I played, and this is true, the guy burst into tears. He said, what have you been doing? What happened? And I said, I don't know. And I never got my range back again.
And it was all to do with moving the embouchure.
It was moving the embouchure, and plus the fact, I think in Greenock they never filled teeth. They used to have dental things, but they never filled anybody's teeth. They just yanked them out. Oh, that's got to come out. That one's got to come out. And I lost a couple of teeth at the back, and I think gradually my teeth started to move, because I used to have a gap in my teeth till I had it fixed. And I think with playing the red of my lip and doing terrible things to my lip and my teeth moving, I think that was the kiss of death. And that was it. But when I was about 14, I got a gig with a band. It was a big band for Greenock. It was 2 saxophones, accordion and drums. That was a big band in Greenock. That was a symphony orchestra in Greenock. And I turned up on this gig, and it was young hopefuls, I think, you know, who had learned all these jazz tunes like Sunny Side of the Street and Georgia and tunes like that. And
were you playing trumpets too?
I was playing trumpet, yeah. And so we started playing, and I didn't know half the tunes, you know. And I said, well, what do I do? They said, well, you play some jazz. I said, well, how do you play jazz? And they said, well, just make it up. Make it up. So I made it up and finished the evening. I thought, that's interesting. I really like this, playing jazz. But I get sacked the next day. They get rid of me. As a matter of fact, I was sacked out of every job in Greenock, because for a start you couldn't hear me, because I'd lost any type of. I mean, in Greenock they went for volume. If you could play loud, you played wonderfully. You were a star if you could play really loud and play high. But I mean, I was more subdued. I mean, a friend of mine said 40 years later, he said, Duncan, you're the only guy who could play a trumpet next to my ear and it didn't hurt. So anyway.
Was that deliberate? Were you thinking about that, being quiet?
No, I wasn't.
You just didn't have the projection?
I didn't have the projection. And in many ways, I was developing a way of playing, and maybe I didn't really want projection. I mean, I played It's sort of like Mars, I'd say. Mars in his early days, because Mars became, when Mars got involved in rock music, he became a much better trumpet player. I mean, some of the runs he does on those rock things are really convoluted, really strange notes.
Mm.
It's back to what I was saying, strange notes. And anyway, when I was sacked out of every job, and finally I got a job, a wonderful job, like the job in Greenock, which was like it was called Cragburn Pavilion, which was right on the water. It was beautiful, wonderful Art Deco type place, and we wore evening suits, and it was three trumpets, two trumpets, trombone, three saxes, and a rhythm section. Quite a conventional band for Greenock. And this guy who ran the band, his name was Henry Morrison, but he called himself Henri. And he was a really sour-faced little guy with a dreadful wig. I mean, it was a horrible wig that went down right over his eyebrows, terrible wig. And he really looked angry all the time. He wasn't very nice, let's put it that way. And he said to me one time, he said, "Look," he said, we're doing a concert, which was unheard of. To do a concert, a band concert was unheard of in Greenock. And he said, "Now we're getting a trumpet player from Glasgow, big guns. The hard gun was coming to town." And he said, "If you do it, and we make enough money," he said, we'll pay you. He said, "I'll pay you for the gig." And I thought, I can't lose, because I knew it was going to be packed, because it was the talk of the town, talk of Greenock. So I said, "Yeah, fine." So after we did the concert, and it was jam-packed. People were desperate to get in. It was jam-packed. And we finished the concert, and 2 or 3 weeks passed, and somebody said to me, "Have you been paid yet for the concert?" I said, "No." The guy said, "Well, I was paid 2 weeks ago." So I thought, I'd probably forgotten something, and I said, I called him Henry. I said, "Henry, you didn't pay me for the concert, and you probably forgot." He said, "Oh, we lost money." I said, "You what?" He said, "We lost money." I said, "Henry, do you want me to finish now, or shall I give you a week's notice?" He said, "Please yourself, do whatever you want." I said, "Okay, I'll finish after tonight." I said, "That's ridiculous." So anyway, he got really angry at this, and he took out like a vendetta on. There was a drummer friend of mine called Jackie Dugan. Do you know Jackie Dugan? Do you know Jackie Dugan?
I know of him, yeah.
Jackie was a wonderful, wonderful player. Well, he worked with...
He came to London, didn't he?
Yeah, he worked with... at Ronnie's.
He played with Stan Tracy, didn't he?
Worked with everybody,
But so was he from that area? Same area as you? Or?
Yeah, he was my little band.
So he's from Greenock?
He's from Greenock, yeah.
Ah, okay.
And he was... I think he was a year older than me. But he always played beautifully. He was just a natural, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful drummer. I mean, he couldn't read music. I talked him into eventually reading music. But he couldn't read, but he played the way that he played at Ronnie's is the way that he sounded. And this guy said, "Look, if you work," he said to some of the guys, because we used to have a little jazz club on a Sunday night, he said, "If you work with it," and we had 2 or 3 people at the band, and he said, "If you work with those two people again, you're finished. You're fired."
He said that to you?
No, he said that to the guys. To the guys
If they work with you and Jackie?
Yeah, they worked with Jackie and I.
Oh.
And so they said to me, Duncan, sorry, but we can't really turn down this gig, you know, because it was
terrible.
It was 3 nights a week, which was unheard of in Greenock. 3 nights a week at this beautiful ballroom, wonderful, wonderful place, with a beautiful grand piano for the pianist. It was just
There's
great.
so much live music then.
Yeah,
Wasn't there?
and a beautiful. This little guy, Henri Moisson, had a beautiful, glamorous wife, which is. I really thought, well, if that's show business, you know, I don't know. But anyway, he said, so I said, don't worry. I said, you know, we'll fix that. We'll get somebody else. So we used to have little jam sessions in people's houses, you know.
So you were listening to jazz now, were you?
Oh yeah, I'd become very, very involved in jazz. Very, very much.
What age are you now? You talking?
I was about 16 or 17.
So what was the jazz you'd heard?
Well, when I was 13 and things like that, I used to listen to the Andrews Sisters and Harry James, because Harry used to play the Carnival of Venice and play trumpet. He was really like a classical trumpet player who played, you know, these bravura solos, you know. And it was when I joined the Georgians, which I lasted one night, I get interested in jazz. And, you know, the incredible thing, this sounds impossible, but there's a friend of mine, a trombone player, who was around a bit older, and I said to him, Archie, tell me, it's 40 years now, how did I sound when I was 14? He said, you sounded like Freddie Hubbard. I mean, I could really, technically, not high, but technically I'd really move. I knew I had a good technique in the trumpet, because when I played the trumpet I get a bit nervous, I used to double everything up. But when I played the saxophone I get nervous, I used to play everything at half tempo. So I mean, really.
So you had more technique on the trumpet.
Oh yeah.
So
because if you start an instrument young, you grow up with the instrument, and you psychologically, apart from anything else, apart from the fact your fingers are more facile, and you grow up with an instrument, and you become used to it, and you become a classical oboist or whatever, you know. You've grown up with the instrument, but I took up the trumpet when I was 7, and I stopped playing when I was 20. And I took up the saxophone when I was 20, or 21 maybe. And you never catch up. You never ever catch up.
Mm.
So I mean, that was it. But anyway,
Duncan, can I ask you something? So when you were listening to jazz, you mentioned Harry James, but so then this would have been in the 40s. Who else were you listening to? Trumpet players.
Well, I remember on the radio, because I don't think I must have been a gramophone, if I listened to the Andrews Sisters. But, and Bing Crosby, the Andrews Sisters and Harry James, that was my background. But I mean, when I was about 15, I heard Charlie Parker playing Night in Tunisia, and I heard that break, and I thought, that is incredible, because it sounded like music from another planet, you know, in those days.
Mm.
I mean, at your young, tender age, you don't realise what it must have sounded like to people who'd never heard it before. It was just breathtaking, and the other big influence me was Birth of the Cool, because we used to go down to a record shop every Saturday, And these poor record people, that's a shame. But we used to go in and listen to records all day long, then leave without buying a record. We couldn't afford records. And
Yeah, you could play the records in the shop then.
you could play the records.
What, did you have a booth to go into
Yeah,
and listen
yeah,
to?
yeah, it was great. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
Was this with Jackie Dugan?
Jackie, yeah.
You were hanging out together.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Jackie was just great. And we used to have a band called the Blue Dawns. And when I think about it, it was two trumpets. My friend, Archie Blair, who, how are you doing for time?
Fine, no, it's fine. Just checking it's on still.
Archie Blair, two trumpets, accordion, and drums. And we used to play things like all the big band arrangements, like Apple Honey and things like that, you know. All the Stan Kenton repertoire. And I think, how did we do it? These kids with an accordion and two trumpets.
So did you learn
and a clarinet.
Did you learn it by ear or did you have charts?
Oh, just by ear.
So you learnt it from the records?
Yeah. I always remember this accordion player who turned out, eventually worked in the shipyards, turned out an alcoholic, unfortunately. And he said to me, I've heard a tune which is wonderful, and it's called Laura. And he played it to me, and every chord was right. And years and years and years later, I became very friendly with David Braxton, the guy who wrote Laura. And I said, I remember Laura very well. I was about 15, 16 maybe. And I said, this accordion player played it to me. I thought it was just the most wonderful. I mean, Laura is a magical song, and it's just... because Laura, I mean, it's still complex now, but in those days it was music that you'd never ever heard before. You'd never heard anything like Laura, and that's the... And David and I became very good friends.
What is it about that tune then, you think, that's significant?
Well, I mean, for a start, it was so... It finishes another key. It starts in G and finishes in C, which is very unusual for the time. Except there were very complex tunes written in those days, as well as Laura. But I never heard them, and I heard the tunes like Star Eyes, which was lovely, delightful song. But Laura was... Well, David had a classical background, and he studied with Schoenberg.
Okay.
And he was the first composer to work with Charlie Chaplin on City Lights. So he had a pedigree. He knew everybody. Well, as a matter of fact, his life story is on Kindle, and it's fascinating. I was reading it last night. It's incredible, his story. The story how he wrote Laura.
Where's he from?
David was, I think, Philadelphia, somewhere, Jewish guy. Really wonderful guy. And
so you heard that?
David, because I remember David was coming in, the first time I met David, he was coming from the swimming pool in Los Angeles, coming in from the pool, and he came in and somebody said, this is Duncan, this friend of mine. It's funny how everything intertwines, because I used to write a lot of library music for KPM, you know, the library music company.
I've heard of them, yeah.
And they invited some writers over to LA. They're starting a new library music company there, and then afterwards to New York. They were starting another library music company there, and I remember they had a huge party at the Henry Mancini building, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people there, and there was this guy that, I don't know if it's ever happened to you in parties, where you meet somebody and you feel very comfortable with them and you talk for a long time, and then eventually something happens and you break up, and then you go back, and then you find yourself back with them again, talking, and you feel comfortable. And this guy said to me, said, so, when are you leaving, Duncan? I said, well, on Monday we're catching the red eye to New York. He said, what a shame. He said, I want to meet somebody. He said, what are you doing? He said, my friend was coming on Sunday night, but what are you doing tomorrow night? I said, nothing. He said, great, I'll get in touch with them. And it was David, this guy was a friend of David Raxon's. And he said to me, I want you to meet David Raxon. And I said, David came in, David shook hands, and I said, are you from another planet? I said, I don't believe you wrote Laura. And he was really quite thrilled by that. But I mean...
when was that? What year would you...
That was probably 70-ish.
Okay.
70-ish. And David became a really, really dear friend. Anyway, to go back to Henri Morrison, he said, I believe you're having jam sessions with those two guys. He said, look, even in private, if you work with those two people again, you're finished.
That's shocking.
So the guys were so furious, they said, Duncan, we know the perfect way to hurt Henry Morrison. And Henry used to put a band into the Melody Maker contest every year, the Henri Morrison All-Stars. That was his big thing in the year, the Melody Maker contest, Henri Morrison's All-Stars. And the guy said, Duncan, we want you to put a band in. I said, I don't want to, I hate contests. But they bullied me, and they said, and furthermore, you've got to write the arrangements. I said, I don't know anything about writing arrangements. They said, look, Duncan, you can do it. Come on. So, something I found, I was, not only was I entering a contest with my lip, which wasn't good. I mean, the thing about my lip was, guys used to say to me, when I worked in London, you said, Duncan, I heard you last night, you sounded incredible. But I heard you tonight and you sounded dreadful. What happened? So that's how inconsistent my lip was. No. So imagine going for a contest like that. So anyway, I got bullied into it. And I didn't know about scores. So I wrote out the trombone part. And the trombone player took the thing away and copied it into bass clef. I didn't know about the alto transposition. I just knew about writing notes. And he took his part away and transposed it.
So you just wrote it in concert?
Yeah, just wrote lines. And so on and so forth. And I think I knew what chord symbols were. I must have done. I must have known what chord symbols were. Because this is the other funny part about me, Martin. And Duncan's got the same thing. That from an early age,
your son.
Yeah, from an early age, from about 14, I seem to know every chord to every tune.
You can memorize sequences.
Even tunes that I didn't hardly knew. People would say, "Oh, play that," and I'd go to the piano and play it.
You can just hear it.
Yeah.
Have you got perfect pitch as well?
No.
You've got a good memory of sound of.
Well,
once you've heard it once.
It's a type of. I mean, I hate to sound big time, but it's a type of gift that I don't think too many people have.
No.
I don't, because it's like a sort of an instinct. You actually know, what the right chord is, and you just play it. It's a bit unearthly in a way, but I mean, so anyway, I wrote all these things, and we turned up at the contest. Now Henry was so annoyed and so frightened that he backed out. So we thought, we've won already. great. We're back. But we thought, bunch of hicks going up to from Greenock to Glasgow was like going to Las Vegas for us. You know, it was a big time.
How far is it?
20 miles, and so anyway, we we turned up at this contest, and to our amazement, we did incredibly well. We won individuals awards and things like that, and we came second. And professional rangers were up there and they were saying, Duncan, that arrangement you did, that was very interesting. How did you do that? And I thought, they're kidding me, because I couldn't believe that anybody took anything I wrote seriously. And it's just, and
what age are you?
I was
What year is that? Do you know?
17. I think it was 17.
48. 1948.
Is that right? I told you I didn't go to school.
Yeah, you're born 1931. Yeah, it's 48.
Yeah.
But you'd mentioned you listened to Birth of the Call.
Yeah.
That would have been after, wouldn't it? Was that later? I can't remember what year that was. That 49? I can't remember what year.
I think I'd probably heard Birth of the Call before, but I know I was about 17. I might have been 18. Who knows?
So what I'm intrigued by is, did you work out anything from recordings?
No.
What were like arrangements or?
No, I didn't. I never occurred to me to copy anything.
You've never done that with solos or anything, or?
No.
Or
I'm too lazy for a start.
what about working out tunes from a recording? Nothing. Like, or big bands arrangements?
No.
Voicings or anything?
No, I mean, Alan Ganley was horrified once when he said to me, Duncan, we should get together and just go through our scores. And I said, but I don't have any scores. He said, well, what do you mean? I've thrown them all away. I said, I don't keep scores. And he said, but that's ridiculous. I said, well, it's just the way I am. So I'm very... The only time I took things off was when I did the writing for The Golden Shot. Do you remember the television program? Yeah. Those shooting at apples and things like that.
You did the music for that?
Yeah. I did the arranging for that.
Okay.
And occasionally there'd be something like, there was always a star, and maybe two stars on, like Cilla Black and Norman Wisdom or somebody like that. And sometimes I had to take an arrangement down. So I sort of managed it, but I didn't do it very well. But I get through it. But I mean, that's probably the only things that
An arrangement from what?
Cilla's latest hit record.
Oh, I see.
So that's the only things that I ever took down when I was employed to take things down.
Oh, I see. So your arranging started with this competition then, did it?
Yeah. I didn't know anything about. I still don't know anything about arranging, believe it or not. It'd be difficult for me to write a triad without the piano. I'd be going, C, E, G. I think it's a triad. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's how primitive I am. Although I can play and orchestrate whatever I've got to orchestrate.
Does it take you long?
Well, at one time I used to do it incredibly fast, but I use Sibelius now, and it's slow because you're your own copyist. So Sibelius is very... But at one time I was... For KPM, I remember one time I was doing a gig in Wales, and the coach broke down. It was a terrible stormy night. It was snowing, and the coach broke down, and all the guys were saying, "That's terrible." And I said, "Oh, that's good. I've got a session tomorrow morning," and I was writing the music in the bus for the following day to take it in to give it to the copyist. And the copyist, he was a real old timer. He used to, I mean, the guys used to plan their things. It was beautiful little band. Steve Gray was in the band, wonderful, wonderful player. Brian Bennett, etc. And about 3 weeks before they did all the things. Copper plate, finished, beautiful copy. My things were like Beethoven sketchbooks, like that. And this copy is usually looking, and he said, oh, yeah, okay, Duncan, that's okay. And this guy was fearless. And they always turned up and they always worked. And so really, I probably am, when necessary, I am very fast. Like, I'll give you a quick instance. Blossom, Deary was a dear friend of mine. And she phoned me one Friday and she said, Duncan, the answer machine, she said, write me a Christmas song. Johnny Mandel's in town, he's written a Christmas song. I want you to write a Christmas song. The phone down. So I spent the weekend trying to write a Christmas song. And I eventually after on the Sunday evening, my wife said, haven't you written a song yet? I said, well, I'm just trying to. I said, I'm trying to write a good song. I said, I'm trying to. So I phoned Blossom on the Monday. She said, have you written anything yet? I said, Blossom, I've written 10 songs. And I'd written 10 Christmas songs over the weekend. Oh. She said, send them immediately by express post or whatever. And she phoned me up. She said, Duncan, I said, any of the songs any good? She said, I'm recording all of them. And she recorded 6 eventually because of various reasons. She wrote one, her brother wrote one, and for various reasons. But she did 6 of my songs.
So you write the lyrics and the music?
Yeah. So, I mean, to get back to Greenock again and Henri Morrison, and we came second in the All Scottish, which was quite an achievement because it was a wonderful big band there called the Beavers, which was really, it was like Tommy Sampson's band. It was a really great band, wonderful band. And we came second, and we had to be critiqued, to be told we were playing out of tune, where our time wasn't good, etc., and to tell us how to do it. And Kenny Graham was there. Now there were 2 big bands, 2 small groups in town, and one was the Johnny Dank with 7, and the other one was Kenny Graham's Afro Cubis.
You're talking about London now?
London. But, I mean, they were known everywhere in Britain.
So he came up, to judge the competition? Or?
Yeah. Kenny came up. Kenny said to me, he was quite belligerent, he was a madman. He said, those solos you played? I said, yeah. He said, were they written out? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, did you write them out? Were they written out before you played them? And I said, no. He said, well, do you want to join my band? I said, he said, do you want to join my band in London? Because Joe Hunter, who was a wonderful player, I don't know if you've ever known the name Joe Hunter.
No.
Well, John is an unsung hero. Joe was like Kenny Wheeler in those early days. He was a great trumpet player, wonderful.
The recordings of him?
Yeah, Joe Hunter with Kenny Graham's band.
Okay.
I never recorded with Kenny.
I'll get those.
But I mean, Joe Hunter, he's still alive. His father was a very well-known actor called Ian Hunter, movie actor. And Joe went to West Point, and he was like he looked very effeminate. His sort of longish hair, he was very artistic, but he was painfully shy and painfully nervous. I mean, this guy eventually just left London. London was too much for him. He went to Brighton, and he's still in Brighton after all these years. But he was a wonderful, wonderful player at the time.
So he left that band. He wanted to leave the band.
He wanted to leave the band, and Kenny needed a trumpet player.
So he went to Brighton then, did he?
Oh no, he semi-worked with a couple of bands, and then he joined this terrible, really dreadful band in Brighton. Terrible band, terrible Palais band, and
He'd rather do that than
yeah, there were no nerves
pressure
attached to
of-
it. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, Graham said, "Do you want to join the band?" I said, "No." He said, "What do you mean no?" I said, "No, I'm too nervous." He said, "Well, you've got to come to London sometime." I said, "No, thank you. No, I'm too nervous." He said, "What?" We didn't have a telephone, of course. But he said, "What's your address?" So I gave my address. And he kept sending these things. "Phone this number, collect." And he kept nagging me. "Look, when are you coming to London?" I said, "No, I'm not coming." "Why not?" And this argument used to go on all the time. And eventually I said, "Yeah, goodbye, Kenny." And he used to put the phone down. And this day, Jackie Dugan and I were standing outside the shipyard waiting to get in. I mean, I'd hosed my jeans before it was popular.
Why are you waiting to get in the shipyard?
Because we worked in the shipyards.
You were working there as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
From the age of 14? Or
From the age of 14, yeah.
Jackie and you?
Yeah.
Oh,
We were
okay.
apprentices.
So, sorry?
We were apprentices. You know, Jackie was an apprentice joiner, I think, carpenter. I was an apprentice sheet metal worker.
Okay.
Anyway,
So with all this music going on, you still had these jobs in the day. Was it
Oh,
in the
yeah.
day or was it shift work?
no, it was during the day. During the day.
Okay.
So anyway, Jackie was desperate for me to join Kenny's band because I think maybe he thought if somebody leaves Greenock, does it for the first time, then I'll get a chance to leave Greenock because everybody wants to leave Greenock. And so, I don't know why I've got a telephone in my pocket. So anyway, we're queuing to get into this hellhole. And Jackie said to me, "Are you joining the band? You joining Kenny's band?" I said, "No, too nervous." And Jackie said something that was pivotal in changing my life, actually. He said, "Duncan, could anything be worse than this?" And at that precise moment it started to rain. And I looked up at the sky and I took off my cap and I said, "I think I'll take the gig after all." And I put my cap back on. And I joined Kenny's band. And
he had work, did he?
Kenny had work, yeah. Kenny had 3 nights a week. There's some time I made a living from playing the trumpet, playing jazz.
So you
on the
went to
trumpet.
London?
So I went to London. And
And sorry, Kenny, was he a saxophone player?
yeah,
Tenor player?
yeah, and a very good arranger.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's very sort of very adventurous writer and very, very bright guy. But he was insane and used to drink like a fish. I mean, he used to shout at the people, "You're a bunch of peasants. You don't know what good music
To
is."
the audience?
The audience used to be cowering like that. Honestly, no wonder he left it and he became a janitor.
Did he?
He talked himself out of music, yeah.
When did he stop then? How long was he
Oh, I
involved?
don't know. But I mean, I remember he was with Phil Seaman once, and Phil was like Kenny Whelan next to him. Phil was just silent, sort of. And Kenny was ranting. And I always remember that scene, and I thought, Phil reminds me of Kenny Whelan.
What, in a
So-
mild
And,
way? You
yeah,
mean quiet?
and so yeah, retiring and quiet and afraid to say anything. Kenny was wonderful, but he was very good with me, and I kept trying to leave every week. Every week I was in the band, and he'd say, "You're not leaving," and loan me a fiver. At the end of the week, he used to say, "There's your money, Duncan. Now can you loan me a fiver?" And I used to loan him a fiver.
He had
And the
no
following
money.
week, you'd say, "There's your money, Duncan. Now can you loan me a fiver?" And I used to give him a fiver every week. And I think I was making £9 at the time, which was like being a Hollywood contract player, you know, next to 17 and sixpence I made it in the shipyards a week.
Oh, so it's a lot,
17
it's a
and
lot of money
sixpence.
then, the £9.
Yeah. I mean, that's less than 50 pence a week. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But anyway,
How did you get a place? Did you get a place to live easily in London?
I got a place called The Mission. That was the name. That was Mrs. McLeod or something. But we called it The Mission. And everybody said that. Phil Seaman, everybody, Johnny McLeavy, all the guys who were around in bands and come back 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, back. So it was a great place to live.
What was it? A big house or?
It was a big house in Paddington. Big house, big house. And it was, everybody had their own room. So I mean, it was a wonderful time.
It was all musicians?
It's all musicians, yeah.
So did Kenny tell you about that place then before you came
Well, somebody
down?
did. Somebody did. I mean, I should tell you about the story about my introduction to London, but it's too long. It would take too long. I don't know how much.
Well, Duncan, we can do more now, and then I could come back another time and we can finish. So if you just carry on and tell me what you want to tell me. So
Okay.
Don't rush, and then I can come back another time.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's obviously a lot to get through.
Yeah. Well, it goes on and on and on and on. My I mean.
So you were 17, 18?
I was, when I joined Kenny's band, I was 19.
Okay, so it was a bit later then after the competition, was it?
It was.
You left it a while.
I must have been. I mean, my memory is blurred, but I must have been 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
I don't know actually. But anyway, I tried to leave. He wouldn't let me leave. He just said, no. I said, I can't play. He said, I like what you can't play. You're staying with the band.
So
I mean, it's a wonderful attitude for somebody who's nervous to be encouraged all the time, you know, by somebody that I respected, you know, as a musician.
what were you nervous about?
I was nervous because, for a start, you know, I seem a very relaxed guy, and people say, oh, Duncan doesn't care about anything, and I don't care about a lot of things, you know, but performance-wise, I really always have suffered a little bit from performance nerves. If it's something important, like for instance, Brian D said to me once, we were out on tour for a month, and he said, Duncan, why is it? He said we do records together. He said you play well on them. He said you play fine. He said, but you don't play anything like the way you play uptown. And I said, well, it's simple as this, Brian. I said, when the chips are down, I can't do it. So, I mean, apart from the fact, maybe if I'd been playing the trumpet the way that I used to play the trumpet, I might have been breezing along quite happily. Or if I'd played the saxophone from the age of 7 and played the clarinet and the flute and whatever, you know, the various things that one grows up with, then I would have had a fighting chance. But I've always felt like, especially in studios, like an imposter, because miraculous things have happened to me. I'll give you an instance. There was a mad trumpet player, a guy called Jimmy Watson. You probably haven't heard Jimmy, have you?
I've heard of him.
Jimmy Watson was really a legendary trumpet player at the time.
A lead trumpet player.
Lead trumpet player and beautiful soulful ballads, jazz, wonderful. And he was just a great trumpet player, great in every respect, you know. And Jimmy was quite insane. And eventually I got a job in London playing saxophone. And There's a band called Eric Laws and his band at Hammersmith Pally. And Jimmy used to arrange for the band and used to turn up with an overcoat and pyjamas and slippers. I mean, that's how mad he was. I mean, I don't know how I got to the place anyway, but anyway, Jimmy recommended me for this LP that we were doing called Swingin' Scots. And the only reason I was there was I was Scottish. But Jimmy had recommended me to Johnny Keating, who was writing a great deal at the time. I mean, he wrote all the Ted Heath charts, etc. Worked with everybody, Sammy Davis, etc., etc., etc. Tony Bennett. Anyway, now Johnny must have thought, I've never seen this guy before. I must see if he can play. And so the other tenor player was Tommy Whittle, who was almost like the Beatles in those days. I mean, he was really a star. He was really a star. I mean, Tommy Whittle, packed audiences, everywhere went to hear Tommy Whittle, because he'd been with Ted Heath's band for a long time, being featured on radio, etc. And then he started his own small group, and he did incredibly well. Anyway, he must have thought, I must see if this guy can play. So the first thing was a thing, sort of on Take the A Train, and I played, and I'm not boasting, but Johnny Keating fell in love with the way I played. I mean, there's no other word for it, because he said to me 40 years later, he said, Duncan, I still feel embarrassed when I see Tommy Whittle, because gradually things get moved over to my chair. Oh, Tommy, let Duncan play this one. Duncan, you play this one. And eventually there was a small group at the end, which suddenly I was in. It was Ronnie Ross and me and rhythm section. And there was 5 minutes to spare. And Johnny, as usual, he was noted for this. He hadn't done the last arrangement, And he had 5 minutes. He said, look, we've got 5 minutes. He said, Duncan, do something with the small group. I said, well, what should we do? He said, make something up. Make something up. I said, oh. So I said to Ronnie, Ronnie, how about, and I played a little thing. And Ronnie said, yeah, okay. 1, 2, 1, 2. And we recorded it. And it was so hurried that by the time I reached the end of the melody, the solos, I'd forgotten the tune. But Ronnie played it. So then I joined in. And that's but the following day I got a call from Charlie Katz. Now Charlie Katz was like Nero. If you didn't work for Charlie Katz, you didn't work at all. I mean, he was offended by certain people, very good players, and they didn't work in the business afterwards. It was really terrible, quite evil at times. For somebody of that type of monopoly. Anyway,
this
I got a call.
To do all with studio work.
Yeah, that's all he dealt in. And he said, hello, my name is Charlie Katz. I said, oh yeah, hello. He said, I spoke to Johnny Keating, who said to book you for everything. So I got a free passport into studio work. And at that time, I couldn't really play the clarinet. I don't think I had a flute. I don't think I own a flute. And so suddenly I was doing film sessions. And I'd be next to virtuosi, guys who played first clarinet in the Guards band and things like that, and classical players as well. And I didn't have a clue.
Okay? Were they okay with you?
Oh, they're wonderful. People like Roy Willocks and Ray Swinfield in particular. If there's something difficult in flute, they just took it up. Yeah, I'll do that, Duncan. Play it. But luckily, there was always a nightclub scene at the end of these movies, and they used to say, Duncan, stay and play for the nightclub scene. So I used to play, and people, the director said, That's beautiful, Duncan. That's great. So I went from being a leper to a hero in one easy step. So that's what I mean. I get into studio work with. For a start, I couldn't play rock and roll. No way I could play rock and roll. It's too quiet, and so I couldn't play rock and roll. My reading was reasonable. I wasn't I was probably too nervous to even read well, and the flute, forget it. The clarinet, forget it. The bass clarinet, forget it. The alto flute, forget it. You know, it was just forget. But
you had all those instruments, or?
Well, I had them, and I worked like a slave, and I got reasonably good on them eventually. Where I did, I did things like a television series with one of the best oboists in town, one of the best clarinet players in town, and I was playing flute and piccolo, and I played it fine. So I really worked like a slave, getting things together. But I never ever, like people like Ray Swinfield or Roy Willicks walk in and they talk and sort of put up parts and you know, and then they go, Rhapsody in Blue. They do the song in Rhapsody in Blue and then put the instrument down. Yeah, I was saying, it didn't faze them at all.
They could play anything, right?
Yeah, it was easy for them. Easy for them. But to me, I'd have just said, is Roy around? Oh, he isn't. I'm going home. I can't play that. But I never get sent home. I never get sent home once. So I must have fooled them. So it was constantly being in a state of thinking, I shouldn't be here at all. That's usually the way I feel about things. I think I shouldn't be here.
Well,
should be somebody else who can do the thing.
How did the changeover come with trumpet and saxophone? So you moved to London to play trumpet.
Yeah.
Then.
Well, I went back to Greenock.
Oh.
And a friend of mine, I said to Kenny, look, I'm going back to Greenock. I'm going to change my embouchure and try and get it right this time. He said, oh, if that's the way you feel, Duncan, okay. He said, well, I'll be seeing you again. He said, you might not be playing the same instrument, which was quite prophetic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He said, but I'll be seeing you again. And I did. I saw Kenny after that. I worked for Kenny on a film session and things like that. But I mean, I went back to Greenock, and a friend of mine called the Bird, he had a plastic alto. And I said to him one day, because I thought, if I get my lip reasonably okay, I'll be okay. I can work in the shipyards during the day and play at night, you know. I thought, it's not much of a life, but...
Did you get your job back?
I didn't try.
You didn't try?
But I probably would have got the job back because they were short of people. But anyway, I said to him, can I try that? He said, yeah. And I went, and he said, I said, well, what do you do? And he said, well, you put your fingers over there. I said, well, what do I do now? He said, well, you put your finger down there and you got a low note. And I went, bah, B flat. And he said, no, you put your fingers up higher, up, you know, you cover the top keys. And I went, bop. And I said, I've been trying to do that for years in trumpet. I said, that's food for thought. Yeah, think about that. So I got a job in Glasgow because there was no money coming in the house. No money at all. My father was ill and we were really on the breadline. So I got a job in Glasgow on third trumpet and put the deposit on a saxophone. And then after...
The tenor or alto?
Oh, tenor. Then after, because I thought if I take up the alto, I'll be expected to play the clarinet because most of the guys double clarinet, you know. I thought I've got a fighting chance. I'll pull them. So anyway, I got a telegram to join a band because it was really funny. I joined this band a summer season band on trumpet and trumpet and tenor. And the only tunes I played trumpet in were the Gay Gordons, tangos, and trumpet blues. You know, now this guy next to me, he was eccentric. I seem to know a lot of eccentric guys. But he used to say, you know, the solo in trumpet blues, the cantabile part, the sweet part, so on and so forth. He'd have lip like iron. He never trumpeted. He could have played without any trumpet, but he used to say, nudge me, you play it. And I used to go, and he used to come to the end, and there were triplets. And when we used to do the run up, he used to do it perfect. I used to do and I used to try and hit the last note, and he would hit it perfectly, but he'd start laughing. So it just wound up in a shambles. Okay, so that was my story playing the trumpet. So when I got the telegram, and I might be imagining, but I think I got the trumpet and threw it across the room, said goodbye forever, and I've never touched a trumpet since. And so that's my story. But the other interesting thing is, I was thinking about it, that after a year, I auditioned for Basil Kirchen's band, which was a great little band in Edinburgh, really great band. It was like a Woody Herman band. It had trumpets, 4 trumpets, 4 saxophones, tenor lead, and no altos, 3 tenors and baritone. And I was thinking about it recently, it surprised me. I thought, the first week I joined the band, I got I passed the audition. The first week I joined the band, there was a broadcast, and I had a long solo in East of the Sun, a feature. And I was thinking recently, I thought, I did that after a year. But a year before, I didn't even know where you put your fingers. So my life's been a roller coaster. I mean, it's just...
You're a very quick learner.
It's just, well, I mean, I worked very hard practicing.
So you did do a lot of practice?
I did do a lot of practicing.
What kind of practicing were you doing?
I think I did exercises, finger exercises, I think, and long notes.
Study books? Or?
Yeah, from study books, yeah.
The classical ones? Or? Remember what they were?
Not offhand, no. No, I don't remember, but...
So you weren't practicing improvising?
No.
You were just technical?
Technical things, yeah. No, I never tried to practice improvisation until...
But you were listening. Were you listening to tenor players now on recordings?
Well, somebody said to me in later years, "Oh, you must have been influenced by Lester Young." I said, "I didn't hear Lester Young till I was about 32. I never heard." And there's another comical story which is hardly anything to do with it, but I'll tell you briefly. I spent about 7 hours with Joni Mitchell in America, and we had brunch together and talked, and I was there till it was actually dark when we left, and she said, "I don't believe it, I've left the dog in the car." She'd forgotten. But anyway, she said to me, "I love Wayne Shorter." She said, "Don't you?" I said, "Johnny, I've never heard Wayne Shorter." She said, "What?" I said, "I've never heard Wayne Shorter." She said, "Oh, that's ridiculous."
When was that?
Well, I was probably about... That was probably about 15 years ago. So I wasn't exactly a child, a callow youth. So
you hadn't
she was amazed. But I still have hardly heard Wayne Shorter. because the funny part is I don't listen to CDs or like records or whatever. I'm too busy thinking about music to listen to music. You know what I mean? I think it's great that people have this great love and can be moved by music, but even classical music, I feel the same. I sit and suddenly something happens and I'm out the room and I don't bother to put it on again to listen. So really, I'm very, very lax in that way. But I mean,
what about your
I can't help it.
What about your formative years, though? I mean, because you said you heard Charlie Parker. Did you listen to him a lot?
I think. Well, the funny thing is, I was really more interested in Lee Konitz and Warren Marsh, and Stan Getz.
Oh, okay.
Because the harmonic, the oblique harmonic side of Lee and Warren, the Tratansko, appealed to me, but there was something instinctively in me that I didn't like. And I was in New York in 1950, and Lenny Tristano was still teaching, and I thought, I didn't know the word at the time, but I think I'd have probably thought it's Scientology, because he was like the master. You know, I mean, he called himself Lenny. Lenny wouldn't approve of that. I mean, John LaPorta, one of his students, you know, fine clarinet player, told me later. He said, you didn't miss much. But I mean,
what were you doing in New York in 1950?
I was on tour with Vic Lewis, Vic Lewis's band.
It's a British big band.
Yeah, with Kenny Wheeler, Bobby Williams, yeah. So, regarding jazz and music, I'm like a maverick in a way, because I am respected in most areas of music, but I've never really been fully respected. Not expected. I think I've been lucky, but I mean, whereas Bob Efford, for instance, was a studio player, a jazz player, studio player, and so the books, people like Bob Efford, Tommy Whittle, Keith Bird was a wonderful player. He was a studio player, great player, nice jazz player too, and Keith was probably the first call, and people like that. I was way down the list, but I was on the list, jazz-wise. There'd be Tubby, etc., etc., etc. I was way down the list. Arrangers, there'd be somebody like, saying classical, semi-classical, Robert Vaughn and, you know, Wally Stott, Angela Morley. So I'd be on the list as well, but I'd be well down. So I've always been well down the list, but highly respected, which suits me fine. But
so you were in America when you were in
1950.
So you were 19. You're quite young. Is that right?
Well, maybe it was a bit later. No, I think I was a bit older actually. I think I was about. No, come to think, in America I was 24.
Okay,
24.
so it's in the 50s, early 50s.
Yeah.
And you've been playing saxophone not a few years, but not.
Yeah, I've been playing for 4 years. Yeah. So I mean.
What happened then? So then you were firmly, because you went back to Greenock, but then you came back again to London, did you?
Oh yeah.
And you firmly were in London after that, were you?
After that, I've never come back, except, you know, the occasional visit to see my parents. But I mean, that is one side of my life. The other side of my life is songwriting, which covers another area.
How did you get into that then?
How did I get into that?
When did that start?
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, because I think I've always written. I think I've always written little themes and things like that. But anyway, I wrote a song called "There Ain't Nothing Like the Blues," and I was doing broadcasts at the time, late night broadcasts. I was pretty established by this time. With Pat Smythe. Do you remember Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I never
Great.
got to hear him, I don't think. I know
Wonderful,
who he is.
wonderful.
So you're talking later now, right?
Yeah,
He's also Scottish, right?
yeah.
So what are you talking, 60s now? Or?
Probably late 60s,
Yeah.
early 70s, I don't know. But I wrote the song and
With words?
with words, yeah, I'd written his words, and for some reason. And I turned up at the studio and I showed it to Pat, and Pat said, this is a really unusual tune. Let's do it, let's record it. And Sandra King, who was a great singer, she was so fast, she didn't read music, but she was like lightning. And she said, I like that tune, we'll record it. So during a tea break, and this is the way that we worked for a long, long time, Sandra and I, the guys used to go out for the various, whatever, etc. And I used to teach a song to Sandra during the break, and then we'd record it. It was really like white hot creation. It was really a great feeling. Because Sandra used to phone me up the night before and say, Duncan, write a song for tomorrow. So I'd have to write a song, and then I'd teach it to her. And so I wrote, but the next song I wrote, I think I was doing the following week, was a song called I Told You So. So I talked to Sandra again, we recorded it. And Pat said to me, he said, I'd like to send this to Blossom Dairy, I think she'd like it. Can I send it? I said, yeah, sure. So he sent the song to Blossom. Pat went into hospital and he died of cancer. And Blossom dedicated the album to Pat, and she recorded I Told You So. Now, I Told You So is the start of a whole new area, because when I recorded I Told You So, then I started turning out songs all the time, and I met Matt Dennis in LA one time at Dante's Club, and I was talking to him, and I said, are you writing any songs at the moment? He said, yeah, I've got back with my old lyricist, Tom Adair, who wrote Violets for Your Furs and great songs. I said, well, why don't you send it to me and I'll record them? I said, I'll do these late night broadcasts. I'll do the songs.
Were your broadcasts, were they BBC?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of live music then?
Oh yeah.
Wasn't there? You're doing
Wonderful.
that every week?
Well, it seemed to be about every 2 or 3 weeks, yeah. But there were various people on. There was Tommy, there's Danny Moses, small group. There was Don Lusher, small group. And there was loads of a roster of people.
What was that programme? You and the...
It was called something late.
Not You and the Night and the Music, no. It was...
Something, but the night or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, BBC Radio 2, was it?
Yeah. I mean, it was so great that they used to call me sometimes and they'd say, write an arrangement or 2 arrangements for the A Orchestra, which they recorded on a Tuesday night, which consisted of a symphony orchestra and a big band. And I used to write arrangements. I did a couple of features for them as well, the tunes I'd arranged. And there'd be something like Robert Vaughan and Angela Morley, me. And it was just, and you got paid very well. So I mean, as I said, I was the feeling that the funny feeling, the strange thing I have about writing, performing I have a certain amount of apprehension, but writing I don't care, I just write and I think, well, that'll do. That's what I thought, and if you don't like it, it's bad.
Did you study composition with anyone?
No, I don't know anything
Never.
about it.
You never studied?
I don't know a thing about it. But I mean, like for instance, I said to somebody once, my attitude, I'm like regarding writing, I'm writing songs for the same reason, although I work hard trying to get something really right. But it's like a toddler. I mean, they all love to draw and paint, don't they? But they draw it and they go, there you are. They don't care whether it's good, bad or indifferent. They hope it's good, but they don't really, they're more into sweets, you know. They just go, there you are, and they're off. And they disappear. And that's the way I am with writing, and that's the way I am with songs. I think, well, I hope they work, but if they don't, that's all I could think of at the time. So I have two different sort of outlooks on things, you know. But performing wise, I feel like it's inferiority complex in a way, but I feel like an imposter. But there again, I do things and I play things, and people often say, that was really nice. Like, for instance, I was working at Ronnie's for a month, and Ronnie said at the end, we're leaving. Ronnie got a bottle of champagne. He said, Duncan, he said, I've listened every night you've played, and every night you've played something different. And Ronnie really liked the way I played. So I can't be all bad, you know what I mean? So I mean, that is my outlook on music in general.
That was a quartet gig, was it, at the club?
It was with Elaine Domar.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Elaine sang a lot of my songs. But Blossom mainly. But then again, I don't know if you've got enough room in this, but I mean, there was...
Yeah, keep going.
There was one time when I used to have a rehearsal band, well, the one you played in. And not a rehearsal band, a big band, at the Bull's Head.
I think I did once, yeah.
Yeah, which was such a loose band. I mean, it's just, you could do, I used to say to the guys, you can be as outrageous as you like. If you can't think of anything else, don't play. If you think of something, play it. But I don't care what you do. You do anything you want. And so the band had that attitude. It was just...
But you had charts, though. You wanted people to play the charts, right?
Yeah. But often I change things, like, I'd suddenly think, I'd say to Art Morgan, we'd be doing something, I'd say, get faster. And he would sort of use me, and he'd snarl, because it's John Taylor who played piano a long time. He'd snarl at John, get faster. And so the tempo used to go up like that, and I'd go, get slower. And the tempo would go back down again. So I think it was a really, really great band, you know. I mean, I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, but it was a lovely...
I remember being scared.
Oh yeah, everybody was sort of scared, but the fact that I didn't care, then people thought, well, there's no point being scared, might as well have a good time.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
Yeah. But anyway, Frank Holder used to sing with the band. And Frank phoned me out and said, look, it's the 40th anniversary of the John Dankworth Big Band at the Barbican. Can I borrow some arrangement? I said, help yourself, yeah. And everything he did was cobbled on it being an arrangement for maybe an instrumentalist or whatever, and he'd cobbled on the vocal thing. I said, Frank, you've been very good with me. I said, look, I'll do an arrangement for you for nothing. I don't want any money for it. I said, I'll do A Foggy Day. and we'll do it con voce, and there'll be flutes and flugels and bass clarinets and things. I said, it sounded really pretty, and I said, just a little gesture. And he said, oh, that sounds nice. And I said, Frank, you don't seem very pleased. He said, well, Duncan, I'd rather sing some of your songs. And I said, I used this statement. I said, Frank, do yourself a favour. Don't do any of my songs. I said, look, if you do something like Foggy Day or whatever, I said, people know that. It's part of their psyche. They've grown up with it. I said, but if you sing a song that nobody's ever heard of, you'll die a death. He said, well, I still think... I said, look, Frank, take anything you want. Take my songs, take any... And during the rehearsal, you can find out. So Frank phoned on the Monday. On the Tuesday, I was out of town that night, and he phoned, and he said, we did the rehearsal. He said, and Foggy Day sounded really nice, very, very nice. He said, but then John and Cleo said, do something of Duncan's, do Duncan songs. So he said, I told you so. And I knocked him out. I knocked him out completely. So I said, I'm glad I was wrong. So I got a phone call the following week from John Dankworth. And he said, Duncan, he said, we're doing this big CD for CBS in New York, and Toots Thielemans on it, Jerry Mulligan, Clark Terry, etc., etc. He said, and Cleo would like to do I Told You So. I said, oh, that's great, John, yeah. He said, are you likely to be in New York during that time? I said, yeah, probably make a visit over. He said, well, we'll arrange it that we don't do it until you arrive. He said, we'll do it the last session. He said, I'd like you to do the arrangement, Duncan. He said, but... He said, I've half finished it. I said, John, I don't want to do the arrangement. I just want it like Hollywood. I want to sit in the box, lean back and listen to this lovely arrangement. I said, no, I don't want to do it. I said, I don't need pressure. He said, oh, well, okay, fine, Duncan. And you'll be in New York on whatever day. And I said, yeah, I'll be there. So I arrived on the Friday, and my thing was on the Tuesday. And they were recording in the studio at the time. And afterwards we went for dinner. And John said to me, Duncan, I think it'd be an idea if you did the arrangement. I said, no, I don't want to do the arrangement. He said, look, John, I've never written for Cleo. I don't know anything about her. I said, it's a different thing. You know her so well. I said, you know exactly what to do. I don't. He said, well, I still think you should do the arrangement. And he kept talking about it. And I said, no. Finally said, Duncan, I'm desperate. I've got 7 arrangements to finish by Tuesday. So I thought, I said, I don't have a keyboard. He said, I'll give you a keyboard. He said, come to the flat. So we went to the flat, and he gave me a melodica. So, and John copied his own scores, very fast, incredible. John was a brilliant guy, really, really very brilliant guy, and a very musical guy. So I went back, and I had a broadcast to do from a friend of mine in Chicago who had the radio station, wanted to know what I was doing, wanted to know about the album. I said, and he said, it was at midnight when I got back. I got back just before the thing started, coast to coast broadcast. And he said, well, Duncan, how are you? I said, well, I'm fine, except, I said, I have a tiny pencil and no rubber, which rubber means something else in America.
Yeah.
So I had a good laugh at that. But anyway, I finished the arrangement, and I copied it in my terrible, illegible, unillegible, whatever, and my terrible copying. And I thought, right, that's it, done. I don't care what happens now. They can always just use the rhythm section parts. Clear's, she'll sound great anyway. So anyway, on the Tuesday. On the Monday, it was Clark Terry. It was a thing featuring Clark Terry, and so it was fine. And John's manager came out and he said to me, "Have you seen John?" I said, "No." He said, "I think you should see him." So John came out. John was playing something at third clarinet or something. Why he wasn't home writing, I don't know. But he wasn't. He was desperate to play in the band, and he was green with fatigue. And he said, "Duncan, can you do another arrangement for tomorrow?" I said, "No." He said, "Duncan, please, please." I said, "Oh." I said, "Look, I'll be out till 1 o'clock in the morning," because strangely enough, it sounds like I'm name dropping, but I'm not. Richard Rodney Bennett, Sir Richard Rodney Bennett, was doing "I Told You So" on a coast-to-coast broadcast from the Rainbow and Stars in New York. And it was really, and he said, "Duncan, you come along." I said, "Richard, it's great you're doing my song." He said, "I'm not doing it for you, I like a song." Yeah.
Was it your arrangement, or was he just playing piano?
He was just, I think he was playing piano, or there was a small orchestra there. Anyway, I said, "I won't be back till about 1 o'clock in the morning." John said, "Look, we'll be up all night." He said, "Please come and do the arrangement." So I went there. I get the melodica again and the tiny pencil, and I said to John, it was a tune, is it Naomi it's called? Is it a tune called Naomi or something? And that's a name like that, John Coltrane tune.
Oh, Naima,
that's it, yeah.
Yeah, his first
And
wife, yeah.
it was that tune. And I said, John, how do you want it? Do you want the thing? And I mentioned something. John said, "That's great, that's wonderful." Just wanted me out the door. "Oh, that's great, yeah. And Cleo was eating an apple, saying, "What are the words for walking shoes anyway?" Because it was Jerry Mulligan the next day. She was so cool about the whole thing. She was eating an apple. And John was pacing around the room and playing a couple of chords on the piano, racing around the room again, pacing around the room. And anyway, I finished the arrangement. There was a copyist waiting at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't have to copy it. And I arrived at the studio, and I didn't have any sellotape. So it was time. They said, "Okay, we'll do I Told You So," but all the parts were separate. So I was going around saying, I said in the box, "Anybody got any sellotape?" What is sellotape? What is sellotape?
Yeah, what do they call it?
Scotch tape. They said, "You mean Scotch tape?" I said, "Yeah." And they came out with a big... So I was sticking it up and sticking out all the parts. And I said to Mike Rainsey, who's a lovely player, beautiful player, pianist, I said, "Oh, Mike, I was sticking out the parts. It starts Color Butcher there, and it goes along a bit, and then it goes up a semitone." And Mike was all, "Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, great." So I thought, right, it's done. I'm getting out of the way. I'm getting into the box. I was getting into the box, and the A&R man, who was a proper conductor, he conducted symphony orchestras. His name is Ettore Strata. And he said, he pressed the control, and he said, "Duncan, conduct the arrangement." I said, "I can conduct." He said, "Duncan, it's your chart, conduct the arrangement." So I'm standing in front of all these guys. I said, "Well, I'll do it till the right one comes along." So we went through the arrangement, and we got through it, and I thought, it seems okay. And then I heard the voice of doom, the ominous voice. "I think you better come in and have a listen to this." Now that is usually bad news, because they don't want to embarrass you in front of the guys, you know. So usually in the box it's like, and that's wrong. Anyway, and he's quite belligerent, this guy. He said, "Who wrote this song?" And I said, "Well, I did." He said, "Who wrote the arrangement? Who wrote the lyric?" And I said, well, I did. And he said, can I be your publisher? I said, that. He likes that after all. And the guy, he went into a sales pitch. He said, look, I recorded with Tony Bennett last week. I've got various connections. And John said, Ettore, take it easy. I've already emailed David Platts in London. This is an important song. And he said, and Ettore eventually got the American rights to do it. And so that song seems to have led a charmed existence. The next thing happened, maybe 20 years later, maybe 25.
Put the light on. But would you do? Is that okay?
Oh yeah. Oh, we've got every luxury here.
Ah,
It's a jazz club atmosphere.
that's nice.
There's no light here. Anyway, it was about 20 odd years later when I got a call from LA. This guy said, my name is Dick Platts. Dick Lapam. Dick Lapam. He said, I was very close to Nat Cole. He was actually when Nat died, you know. The guy used to cry every time he told me the story about how it was when, you know, the last few moments with Nat. And he had pictures of Natalie as a little baby in his knee. And he said, I think Natalie would like I Told You So. He said, if she doesn't, I'll kick her in the pants. He said. So he said, is it okay with you? I said, yeah, great. But I've heard all these things before, you know. Things that are supposed to happen, they don't happen, you know. So I didn't even bother. And about 3 weeks later he phoned me out. He said, Duncan, Natalie's recorded I Told You So. He said, beautiful rhythm section. It was, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was an all-star rhythm section, you know, it was wonderful. And is it Joe Sample? Is that the guy, Joe Sample?
He used to be in the Crusaders, yeah. Keyboard
the pianist,
player.
yeah. He said Joe Sample and piano, etc., etc., etc. I said, oh, that's great. But I thought, maybe it will happen, but I don't really care, you know, I don't really bother.
But it seems like things did happen for you. Are you saying that? I'm
saying that things seem to happen to me automatically. I've never pushed anything, but things always come to me.
You've never thought about your career and going to meet people for specific to further your career?
No, not really. No,
in your life?
I'm just a simple soul. But I mean, then he phoned me about 3 months after that, and I was in America at the time. And he said, have you got 3 minutes to spare? I said, yeah. And he played Natalie's version of I Told You So, which is lovely. You know, it's a beautiful arrangement. And they asked me in a radio interview which of my songs I preferred. I said, well, it has to be, without any doubt, Natalie's, because no expense was spared, you know. It was great guys, like Joe Sample, etc. And money was no object. A beautiful arrangement. The guy who wrote for Steely Dan did the chart, and it was lovely. Although really, the truth of the matter is, it was my chart. He just borrowed things. He borrowed things. Because Dick said to me, Duncan, I believe you write as well. I said, yeah. He said, well, maybe you could do the writing. I said, no, I don't want to do it. I did enough of John Dagworth, you know. I said, no, I don't need pressure. I said, no, let somebody else do it. And so my life has been so convoluted. It's twisted and turned and twisted and turned. But it always seems that things turn out right. Things happen to me that are unexpected, you know, including the people I knew. People like Matt Dennis and Claire Fisher and Gil Evans. I mean, that's another interesting story about Gil. Gil was doing an interview in the Crescendo, I think it was, and the guy was talking naturally about Mars. He'd been working with Stan Tracy as well. They did a tour some years ago, and he said, "How was Stan?" And he talked about Stan, and he said, "Who in your estimation would you rate as your favourite writer?" Or words to that effect, you know. And Gil said, "Well, there's a guy nobody's ever heard of called Duncan Lamont." He said, "He's fantastic." And words like that, you know. And he said, and the guy said, "Oh, he's known as a saxophone player." So I don't know what he's known as, but he said he's a great writer. So, I mean, that just came out of the blue from nowhere. And so, anyway, sometime after that, I went down to Ronnie's because Gil was working there. And John Taylor, who was with the band, said, "Have you seen Gil?" I said, "No." He said, "He's always talking about you." I said, "Well, what do you mean he's always talking about me?" He says, "He's always talking about you. You should come and meet him." So I went into the little room, you know, the back. And Gil was sitting on an easy chair. And John said, "Gil, this is Duncan Lamont." It was as though the Pope had come in. He went, "Duncan." And people kept coming in, minor celebrities. And he said, "You know, this is Duncan Lamont." And I think, who the hell is Duncan Lamont? You know, but then I got a call from a guy called Malcolm Griffiths, trombone player.
I know Malcolm. Yeah.
And he said, "Gil would like you to work on Absolute Beginners, the film. Play on Absolute Beginners." I said, "Well, that's great." He said, "Yeah, he's always talking about you, you know." So, I mean...
What had he heard of yours then?
Well, I spoke to Gil afterwards. I said, "Why did you hear anything of mine?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I don't know. A tape, somebody gave me a tape, whatever, I don't know." Gil was a lovely guy.
Was it just songs that he'd heard? I mean, because you
No, it was a big band arrangement.
So you'd arrange big band things?
Because he mentioned me as an arranger. He
Okay.
didn't mention me as... I mean, I've written hundreds of things, like suites, you know, the Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. You know, I've written probably about 10 suites as well.
Were they all recorded?
Well, they're all...
They're all available?
Well, I mean, they're not recorded. I mean...
On records, I mean.
That's what I mean. They're recorded from broadcast. That's what I mean about being well down the list. I'm well down the list regarding, you know, somebody saying, "Oh, that sounds great, let's do a recording of it." You know, we pay people to come in and do it, you know. But the Young Person's Guide is great.
What's that piece? The Young Person?
The Young Person's Guide is... It's a parallel on Benjamin Britten's Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. In other words, he takes the orchestra apart, and he does variations for each of the, you know, for the French horns, the woodwind, etc., etc. He does all these little tunes, little variations on the original theme that Henry Purcell wrote in 1700 or whatever. The same... It's, anyway, you know the tune if you heard it. So, I mean, I don't think Gil heard any of these things. I think probably he heard maybe a broadcast or something I did, commercial broadcast, I don't know. He didn't know, I didn't know.
So your Young Person's thing, was that a big band then?
Oh yeah,
As more
18
jazz?
people. Yeah.
When did you do that?
I did that 30 or 40 years ago. A long time.
With the
I
British
don't have any
big
question, any idea of time.
band? British big band?
Yeah. It's a great band. And on it, I should try and get... It's like everything else, like records and things. I don't know where they are. You know, But there are copies of the Young Person's Guide, which, strangely enough, Stan Saltzman phoned me recently, about a year ago. He said, Duncan, he said, because Stan was on it, he said, because we did this jazz club broadcast, which is almost perfect. How the guys get through it, I'll never know, because it's very difficult, highly difficult. Because as a trumpet player, I didn't want to write ba 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 da da. I wrote this thing that's like a violin, and the trumpets. Because the trumpet is a very facile instrument, you can play very, very fast, very smoothly on it. You know, it's like liquid, like a drop of water coming down. You know, it's fast. It's fast. And I said to the guys, I remember Derek Watkins was there. And I said, okay, guys, we'll do it. And we ran it through, and Dick said, Duncan, that's really impossible. That's terrible. I said, Derek, it's all under the fingers. He said, well, it might be under your fingers, but it's not under my fingers. He's great. Wonderful guy. So, I mean, really,
Did you play on it?
No. No fear. No fear. I didn't mind writing
I must get that then. Is that available on CD or not?
No.
No.
But I can give you a copy. If you want a copy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What, on vinyl or?
CD.
Oh, you've got a CD of it?
No, I got it. Somebody did a tape and did a CD.
Converted it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love a copy.
Yeah, it's great because John Taylor and Gordon are the two pianists on it, Gordon Beck, and they play like angels.
Wow. So it must have been 70s then, was it? In the 1970s or?
Early 70s, I'd say.
Okay.
Or maybe middle 70s, I don't know.
So someone put the money up for that, a record company or?
Oh no,
was it
no, it's broadcast.
Just a broadcast?
Just a broadcast.
One?
And we had one, we turned up in the afternoon for maybe 2 hours, rehearsed it, had a break, came back, played it for a live audience, a broadcast, and it really is sensational. And Stan said to me, Duncan, I heard a tape of the Young Person's Guide. He said, because I didn't know how to. He said, but I played it. He said, you must put this out. You've got to put this out. So, I mean...
Well, you said that recently?
Yeah. Yeah. He said, you've got to put this out. He said, apart from anything else, the playing on it is magnificent. You know, from everybody. I mean, it's so difficult. It's highly difficult. But the guys rise to the occasion beautifully.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
I didn't even know how I conducted it. I don't know how I get through it.
So was that a BBC broadcast?
BBC, yeah. There was one time, talking about writing fast, when I did a suite called The Carnival of the Animals. And it was all different animals from the Saint-Saëns thing, you know. And like elephants and rattlesnakes and fleas and things like that, you know. Anyway, I did the broadcast, and I spoke to Pete Beechel, and I said, Pete, I don't want to use Nigel, but I want to use young players because it was so whimsical. I thought, it doesn't need grown-up players playing this, because it was quite difficult in a way, but I mean, not like the Young Person's Guide. You know, I needed people like Derek Watkins, and so anyway, Pete fixed these. He recommended these great guys. I found out Django Bates was on piano for a start. You know, and anyway.
And this was for the other piece?
This was for the Carnival of the Animals.
Was that also a BBC?
This was a BBC broadcast.